Welcome to the BYU Foods Lab. I hope your experience here is fun and educational and that you will learn things to improve the lives of your family, your friends, and hopefully yourself. When you first come into the Foods Lab, you need to park your backpack and your coat on the hooks here. What that does is it keeps our kitchens clean by keeping any outside dirt just in this area. The next thing that you'll need to do while you're still in this area is restrain your hair, tie it back, and it needs to stay tied back for the entire cooking time, including the eating time. While you're in the kitchen, it needs to stay tied back. Then you're going to go to your kitchen and you're going to wash your hands. Make sure that you wash your hands for a full 20 seconds in hot, soapy water. The cabinets behind me are where you'll find linens that you will replace the linens at the end of your cooking experience. Make sure that you keep this cabinet nice and organized. The tablecloths and the placemats and the napkins that you see here will be used during the Magnificent Meal Week. There also is another cupboard behind me that houses dishes that will be used for special serving and during the Magnificent Meal Week. These are usually kept locked, but we use them for special occasions. Behind me is where we keep the broom and the dustpan. In the small kitchen, the broom and the dustpan is kept by the door, and in the small kitchen, the linens are in kitchen 9 under the counter. On this pillar right here, you're going to find the unit duties chart, and you need to check that before you go to your kitchen. The unit duties chart will tell you what your unit duty is to keep our kitchens clean. With 300 students coming through this kitchen per week, we need to make sure that everyone does a unit duty so that everything stays clean. You'll also notice some bins here underneath the bulletin board, and those are specialty flours. The whole wheat flour, bread flour, cake flour, those kind of things are kept below the bulletin board when we use those during a week that calls for them in the recipe. These bins over here are the flour and sugar bin, but you also have a flour and sugar bin in your kitchens. It's your responsibility to fill the flour and sugar bin when it becomes empty, and this is where it's kept. After lab has begun and the video is over, you need to make sure that you've filled out your lab evaluation form and your time management plan. At that point, the TA will bring out the refrigerator cart. Make sure that you keep track that it only has 30 minutes to be out until it needs to go back into the dispensary. There will be a kitchen assigned to keeping track of that time, and when that time is up, that kitchen will wipe it down, bring it to the TAs, and we'll put it into the dispensary refrigerator. If you fail to get something off of that cart and you need it for your recipe and it's already in the dispensary, it costs you 3 points off of your grade, so make sure that you get that. The top shelf typically has eggs and milk and items that are used in recipes for the week. The second shelf typically has produce, and the bottom shelf typically has meat. When you come to the refrigerator cart, make sure that you bring your black tray. Make sure that you have a list of things that you're going to get. Make sure that you bring your measuring equipment, and make sure that you bring something to put the things that you've measured into. So bring it to the cart and take just what you need. If you take more than you need, then the people at the end of the week will not have the supplies that they need. This counter right here, when you first walk in, this is where you'll turn in assignments if they are due. And behind that, you will find plastic wrap, aluminum foil, and wax paper. You need to remember that you need to bring your own containers to take any leftovers home. The leftovers belong to you, so you'll want to make sure and bring those containers to take them home. We can't give you paper products, or all of our budget goes toward paper. The parchment paper is one exception. It's not kept on this counter. It's kept in the top right-hand drawer of kitchen 7 or in kitchen 8. That is a midterm test question, by the way. Where is the parchment paper kept? Back here in this corner, there is cleaning supplies. There is a chemical that can be used for the porcelain top of the cooktops, and if anything's spilled there, let it cool and then squirt the chemical on. And then there's also a razor blade that you can use to scrape off the burned substance. That same chemical you can find under your sinks, but there is some here as well. There's also tissues and plastic gloves up here in case you need those. If you cut your finger during lab, we do have a first aid kit, and the first aid kit is kept in the dispensary. There's a lot of supplies in here. If you have cut your finger and you put a Band-Aid on it, then you are required to wear plastic gloves over that for the rest of the food preparation time. On this wall, we have the fire extinguisher. Remember, PASS, pass. First thing you need to do is remove the pin. Second thing that you need to do is aim. Third thing is to squeeze. And the fourth thing, to swipe. With a fire, before you even come to get the fire extinguisher, you should make sure and contain it as far as cutting off the oxygen source. If it is in your oven, keep the oven door shut. If it's on the stove top, you'll want to put a lid on it, and hopefully that will contain the fire. If we ever have an emergency and we need to evacuate, you just leave everything as is, turn off all of your appliances, turn off all of the ovens, leave the food on the stove, and then just evacuate through this door, go to the end of the hall, up the stairs, and outside. That's our evacuation route. Over by the door here, there's a bright pink sign that says, no students are allowed in the dispensary for any reason. That's for safety reasons, that's for organization reasons. Also in the dispensary, the TAs and the instructors sometimes are doing other work, so you'll need to catch our attention so that we can come out and help you when you need it. When you get to your kitchen, you're going to notice that there are 3 towels on the counter and 1 dishcloth. At the end, you need to make sure that there are clean ones to replace these. First thing you need to do is kind of identify where your kitchen zone is. It's a little bit different in each kitchen and in the small kitchen, but by opening all the doors and drawers and cupboards, you can kind of figure out a general map of the place. So basically, the kitchen sink with the cabinet above it belongs to this kitchen. It's kind of hard to reach and it's in an awkward spot, but the cupboard above the sink will house your small appliances. This cupboard houses the serving plates, the measuring cups, and some mixing bowls. Remember that there are some staples in that cabinet by the dishes. Remember that the vanilla is concentrated. 5 drops equals 1 teaspoon. You'll also find baking soda and baking powder there. You'll also find on your countertop the staples that include flour, sugar, and salt. If those run low, you need to go to the bins that I pointed out at the beginning of this video and refill those. There's a knife block here. Remember that sharp knives are much safer than dull knives, so keep them sharp. You also have a paper towel roll. That is to dry your hands with. Don't use the cloth towels when you're washing your hands. You want to use the paper towels because of sanitation reasons. In front of your sink is the sharps basket with the soap and a brush and a sponge and sometimes a scrubber and the stopper for the sink. Make sure that you keep that clean. In these drawers, you have serving utensils, and in this drawer, you have cooking utensils. Make sure you familiarize yourself with all of this and take note of the labels so that you can put things back exactly where they belong. Above the microwave, you'll find the manual for the appliances. You'll also find the Betty Crocker cookbook, and you'll also find the price list when you get to do your magnificent meal. It will give you all of the prices for food items. Underneath this place where the drawers are where the pots and pans are. Remember that in the small kitchen they might be in a different place. And then on one side of the microwave, the opposite side of where you have your plates, will be baking equipment. Usually you'll find the flat baking equipment in the lower cabinet. In the crocks that are found to the right and to the left of your cooktop, you're going to find a lot of cooking utensils. Just make sure that you read the labels and put them back where they belong. If you have any question as far as what they're used for, ask a TA, because you do need to know what all of these are used for and what their names are for the midterm. The KitchenAid mixer has a lot of applications in lab. It should be used at the point of first use for all mixing. And the reason is that it's just fast and easy and it handles the job really well. So always use this first. The small hand mixer is only used for little tiny quantities of things, and it's used very rarely. Some of the parts on the KitchenAid mixer are the paddle, and this is used for batters and very thin doughs. There's also the dough hook, and the proper name for this is dough hook, not just hook, and this is used for bread doughs. And this is the wire whisk attachment. Sometimes this gets bent because of all of the use in our lab and it doesn't touch the bottom of the bowl. All that you need to fix that is just to squeeze this, and that will make it longer and it will make it work. You also need to look and make sure that all of the wires are evenly spaced, and you can just bend them back to where they need to be. You'll also have a splash guard, and it will just make sense with certain recipes when you want to add the splash guard to the top of the bowl. There's an opening right here that you can add ingredients through, and that prevents the kitchen from getting as messy. When you're finished using the KitchenAid mixer, make sure that you use a wet cloth and wipe down the entire surface. Make sure you get this underneath part. Make sure that you get this part at the back and the base, and wipe the cord down thoroughly and wind the cord around the back here. All of this needs to be put where it belongs before the TA will check you out, including winding the cord up on the KitchenAid mixer. In the cabinet where the trays and the flat baking pieces of equipment are, you'll also find the cutting boards. The white cutting board is a multi-purpose cutting board that can be used for anything. You will also find a green cutting board, and that should be used for produce. The red cutting board should be used for meats. Now, there's nothing magical about the red for meats. It just helps us prevent cross-contamination. You do need to remember that when meat touches any surface, you need to use the sanitizing solution, which is kept under the kitchen sink. And after you have rinsed this off, washed it with soapy water, you'll spray it with the sanitizing solution and then rinse it again before drying. And that's true of any surface that comes in contact with meat. You also have a flexible cutting board. This works great for cutting, but it also works good as a funnel. It also works good for moving a piece of, let's say you've rolled out a great big piece of dough for a great big sugar cookie. It helps to move pieces of food items as well. In the base cabinet where the pans are kept, you're also going to find the base to the food processor and the base to the BlendTech blender. I wanted to also tell you the names of some of the pans that are kept there. This is a steamer, and it is placed in this saucepan, and it's when you want to cook things that you're only going to cook them by using steam. All of these pans right here are considered saucepans. They're different sizes, and you need to choose the size of the pan depending on the job that you're doing. But a saucepan is typically characterized by a deep depth in relation to the diameter. So all three of these are saucepans, and they typically have just one handle. These are considered sauté pans. You can remember sauté pan by the S in sauté pan, and this is a sloped side. So this is technically a sauté pan, this is a sauté pan, and the one on the counter is a sauté pan. Sometimes they're given specialty names. This is sometimes called a wok, and this is sometimes called an omelet pan, and typically this is just called a sauté pan. Now, if you go to Walmart and they call this a frying pan, Walmart is wrong. This is a frying pan. A frying pan does have a straight side, but it has a very wide diameter. And that's the difference between a sauté pan and a fry pan, the straight edge. This is a stock pot, and with our stock pots, they came with a vegetable steamer. It also has the little holes in the bottom, so you can have boiling water and then steam things in it. Ours also came with a pasta basket, and it has a lot of holes in it, and you would just have the boiling water here and then submerge the pasta into that. When it's ready to drain, you just lift it out. Also in the cupboard where all of these things are kept are lids that fit certain ones of these pans. When you go to check out at the end, make sure that you count the number of pans that you have, make sure that you count the number of lids you have, and put them on the correct shelves. In lab, you need to set up a dishwashing system that you'll use throughout the cooking process. What you'll do is you'll set up your dish strainer with the tray underneath, and then fill the sink that is farthest from the dish strainer with hot soapy water. Leave this sink that is close to the strainer empty so that you can do rinsing here. The process for washing dishes would be to rinse them first, then wash them in the hot soapy water, then rinse them again, and then put them in the strainer. Please don't put the cutting boards in the strainer because they're too heavy and they'll flip out, so just dry them immediately and put them away. Now there's one additional step in this when you have something with meat, and that is to add the addition of spraying with the sanitizing solution after you've done the rinse, the wash, the rinse, then sanitize, then rinse again. At the very end, when you have got all of your dishes cleaned, dried, and put away, and it's the end of the 2-hour time frame, you'll sit down and eat with your kitchen group. At that point, you'll drain the sink and make sure you fill the sink with clean soapy water so that the dishes that you eat on will be cleaned at the very end of lab. Happy cooking, Cougars. Make sure that you take care of your garbage can at the end of lab. You'll take the liner out, gather up the garbage, and you'll put it in the big garbage can by the entry door to the classroom.